Good morning, bows and bow ties. This is the Black opinionated woman, also known as a bow, and I just want to talk about something today. I want to talk about colorism versus pretty privilege. And you're like probably wondering, why is she talking about this? Aren't we done with this? I thought we were. I thought we were. But then I saw something on TikTok over the last week that's still surfacing, and I was like, okay, wait a second. So Um, I'm going to come off camera because, I'm driving out here in these dark streets. Don't want any drama out here. This light, I think, is distracting while I drive, or it's distracting for other people. I don't know. So I'm going to just put my avatar on and I'm going to talk to you. Okay. Okay, let me get my light together here. Okay. So let's talk about light skinned or colorism privilege versus pretty privilege. Well, what is privilege? It's basically when you have some sort of advantage, it's an unearned advantage, right? So when you're talking about these privileges, you have, if you're talking about pretty privileges, when people get all kinds of advantages just for being pretty, okay? Just for being pretty, kind of like me. You get these advantages for being pretty. But then there's this thing called colorism, which is a form of pretty privilege, depending on how you look at it. But it's when you get these unearned privileges for having lighter skin. It's for the color of your skin. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're pretty. It just means you have these disadvantage because you have a particular skin tone shade. So, why did I bring this up? On TikTok, there is a woman. I think they said she's about 50 years old. I tried to get the clip and upload it here for StreamYard, but it was not letting me upload. I was like, come on. And I think she took the original one down, so I tried to grab the clip from somebody else's TikTok video where they stitched it. But for whatever reasons, I didn't have time to manipulate it, for my driving to work. But anyway, this woman comes on. She basically says, hey, pretty privilege is real, something like that. And people are coming for me because of my light skin and my light eyes and my hair texture. So she has like these bluish greenish eyes. I mean, she looks black, but she's very light. I think she's biracial, but she reminds me of a lot of people like in my family, like my mom's age and older. Rest in peace, my mom. Um, so like when I would go to family reunions, they were very fair. They had very fair skin, loose textured hair, etc. Light eyes, whatever. They had a particular aesthetic, right? Um, so I think I don't know where she lives. I don't know anything about her background. Okay, I checked out her page and it looks like she's lost a lot of weight. I think I've seen comments where they said she's lost a lot of weight, so she's probably feeling really good about herself, as she should, because that's a major accomplishment. But in her defense, well, let me just say this: the part that was really disappointing about that video was she was 50 years old. Keep in mind, I'm 49, 49 and fabulous. But she's 50 years old and she doesn't understand the difference between colorism and pretty privilege. So people were in her comments eating her up on her looks. Now, I don't like coming for women's beauty. I don't think this woman is ugly. I think because maybe her weight loss and the way things happen, like sometimes when you have rapid weight loss, it looks different on your body. So what it appears has happened is she lost a lot of weight and it appears to have aged her. Okay. And it could be because it was a rapid weight loss. I don't know. But they are coming in there, eating her up in her comments. I understood where they're coming from, but the main thing I want to say is this, because I'm not interested in attacking this woman's beauty. I don't think she's ugly. I just think she looks aged. I think she looks like she might be significantly older than 50, and I think it's just due to the weight loss. But the part she just didn't understand the difference between people finding her attractive due to her skin tone, her eye color, and I guess she has like a looser textured hair. I don't know, because I think she was wearing it like braided up into some puffs or something. I don't know. And if she had said, "Hey, colorism is real," I think people would have rocked with her, but like, "Yup." But she was basically I think she ended it with like, "Look, don't hate me, y'all hate your parents that you," and I'm like, whoa. So basically she was getting on people saying like, hate your parents that you didn't come out looking like me. That I think is how it was received. And I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, let's talk about light skin privilege or colorism and pretty privilege, whatever. I don't have super light eyes. I think I have what's considered the average textured Black American hair, but I do have light skin. Not as light as hers, but I have pretty fair skin. You can go back and check all my videos. You'll see what I look like. It's all there. You see my hair in various states. Okay, so go take a look, and you'll see in any other video that I have. You can tell what I look like. Look at me in the day. Look at me in the night. Let me just say this. I know the difference between colorism and pretty privilege. Now, in my opinion, especially back in my bitter younger days, I experienced both. I didn't know I had been experiencing colorism until probably my 20s. That wasn't really something that was taught a whole lot in my family. I was primarily taught about racism, not necessarily about colorism. I think also at the time when I was growing up, I didn't know how to name it. So we want to call a thing a thing. Uh, I think that the fact that we're even still having this conversation lets me know that we have a long ways to go. Especially depending on where you live. If you're not living in an area that is used to seeing all kinds of people, all types of people, if you're and I know I'm making stereotypes, so please forgive me. If you're used to living maybe in the deep South where that is pedestalized and prized, um, I, okay, I don't know. I'll say this. When I was younger, one of the things that I learned late was colorism. That's the one thing I feel like in my youth or whatever growing up that I was at an extreme deficit in terms of being educated and knowledgeable about. I benefited from colorism but didn't really know it, didn't I couldn't name it, at least not right away. Because the one thing I was taught, like, I just always grew up thinking of myself as a black woman versus a light skinned black woman. I was actually reminded more about my skin tone when I left home. I get reminded about my skin tone as an adult. As a matter of fact, I got reminded yesterday. Believe it or not. That's a whole other story. I got reminded. I was actually told about myself as I got older. And I know a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to have a lot to say. And I got to let people be where they are because I'm telling the truth and I'm giving it from my set of experiences on how I was navigating in this world. And I have to see if I can find some of these old videos, but I want to make sure I explain something for a second. When I left home and I went to college, I had never been called red bone before. I'd never heard of that term before. And I went to a PWI. For those of you who don't know what a PWI is, a predominantly white institution, basically white colleges. Um, it was mostly white people, but we had, some black people there. And there was this one guy who kept saying, "What's up, Red?" I never knew he was talking to me. And so for about a month and a half, because if he didn't call me directly by name or something, I never responded to this man. But he was like, "How come you don't speak?" And I'm like, "What?" And so people are like, "Yeah, you don't speak, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I speak all the time." They were like, every time I'm like, "What's up, Red?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "That's not even like, wait, what does that mean?" Like, I didn't know they were talking to me. They thought I was being stuck up and I didn't want to speak. Like, it was like a whole bunch of nonsense. Anyway, we got that all squashed. But as I was navigating college and my young adult life in my early 20s, I learned through a lot of actual negative interactions with darker skinned women about colorism. I got my feelings hurt on things. I've had people do some really just plain old awful things. Now, before you guys get mad, no, I don't have deep rooted issues with dark skinned women. I'm getting ready to sound like ridiculous when I say this, but I say this tongue in cheek. Some of my best relationships are with darker skinned women. It is actually true. But what I am saying to you was when I left home, I experienced some really awful, awful, awful things at the hands of darker skinned women because of colorism. And I will say this, I did not know how I was showing up in this world. Okay? It's not like I've never heard that I had light skin or anything like that, but that wasn't something that I explicitly knew until later, until I understood how some of my family members treated me. But generally speaking, I just did not grow up thinking about colorism. And I can have a different conversation another day about how I grew up in colorism and my experiences. But when I went to school and then after I graduated, I was an officer in the military. My early years in the military, before I got out, I was in the Air Force. The colorism aspect of how I showed up in this world and how I benefited from colorism. Okay, I want to be. We're gonna call a thing a thing. And the experiences I had because I benefited, sometimes not knowingly, let's be clear. Usually it was at the hands of a woman and maybe wanting the amorous affections of another man. Um, but I received a whole lot of privileges because of pretty privilege and colorism. Colorism really is a real thing. I think what's got these people on TikTok going crazy is this woman was speaking like she was like super dope and didn't even understand the difference between having pretty privilege and experiencing privilege due to colorism. That's why people are like, wait a second, this isn't because of your prettiness, because that's debatable. They were saying you're experiencing these set of privileges because of your light skin and light eyes, not because you're pretty. Now, I don't think this woman is ugly at all. I just think that she looks aged. Um, but when what she was trying to say, and she did a really poor job of it, was colorism is real. It most definitely is real. It's real. Now, I think we have a long ways to go in our society. Do I think people are getting better? Absolutely, because the fact of the matter is, um, the brown skinned chicks are just doing it. They are super gorge. And no, I don't feel the need to pander or anything. I think we can say this objectively. Absolutely beautiful. I just think black women are beautiful. And I think people are starting to recognize the beauty in the shades of blackness, right? But if we are being clear, colorism is still real. And I feel like many black men really do suffer from, I don't know, they struggle with it. They struggle with it. They struggle. When I say they struggle, I think in terms of valuing beauty, I think they still are aligning themselves or trying to get proximity next to something other than black. So they haven't really come full circle, although it's starting to happen, right? The start is better than the zero. Anyway, getting back to the colorism. When I talk about having earned privileges, I did earn privileges because I was conventionally attractive and I had the skin tone that many men, I guess, found desirable. Once I started understanding what was happening, because I was a little late to the game, look, I was a late bloomer, right? In the beginning, I did nothing. I did nothing. I didn't have the tools. I was preferred. I was desired. I was considered desirable. In the beginning, I did nothing. And for those of you who've been with me for a while, you've heard me have this conversation before. I didn't do anything. It was later as I started. Do you guys know the difference between morals and ethics? Morals are things that are taught to you, right? Your foundation. Some of you find that you get your mores through your Christian foundation. Some of you might find it through science. Some of you might find it through nature, right? Um, but everybody finds some sort of, they have their mores. There's something that gives you morals, right? But ethics are things that are learned through experiences. That's when it starts to challenge your mores, right? Well, as I've gotten older, my my ethics would kick in. And I would have these conversations. Yes, I was one of those. Look, don't judge me. I actually would call people out. I'm like, why don't you date so and so? Because I would look at women, brown skin women that I thought were just so pretty and beautiful, and I like looking at pretty women. No, I'm not a lesbian, let's be clear. But I just think women are beautiful, right? And I'm thinking some of these women are so gorgeous, like super gorgeous. And dudes would not rock with them. And I'm like, she is stunning. She's stunning. And so I would get into these like little discussions with men. They're like, well, no, we're trying to let you. But I'm like, I'm trying to understand what is it about her? I'm like, her body's banging. And she's smart and she's funny and she's pretty and blah. And they wouldn't, they were like, well, they had all these excuses. Even as recent as like maybe 5 to 7 years ago, I would have these conversations with people. I don't really have them anymore because I don't know. I feel like I'm too old to be having these conversations. But I would have discussions with people about their issues with women, brown skinned women. Um, I'll even say as recently I've experienced some frostiness from maybe one or two brown skinned women, but they don't matter to me. I don't feel like I need to go around treating brown women a certain kind of way because I feel like I'm trying to be in community with all the black women. I think we need each other. I know we need each other. So I would say this. I would ask these questions like, what is your problem? Why don't you find these women to be a certain kind of, whatever? Once I understood what colorism was, you know, like I said, when I was younger, I didn't know how to name it. I didn't have the tools to handle it. But as you get older, when you know better, you do better, right? When you know better, you do better. But anyway, so I wanted to circle back to this light-skinned woman with the light eyes and lights in the loosely textured hair or whatever it was. It was a great disappointment to listen to this woman get out here on Jesus' internet talking about how she has pretty privilege when really what she was talking about experiencing privilege due to her color, like due to colorism. Um, and then she's like, well, be mad at your parents, like almost like be mad that you didn't end up looking like me. She's like, and we're out here catching it, y'all. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, why would you make that video? I don't know how that video was beneficial. We already have enough issues in this community. Everybody knows that colorism is still existing. I was just trying to figure out what was she trying to prove? Like what was she? I don't understand what she was looking to gain. It was just the most ridiculous thing. And then to embarrass herself not knowing the difference between pretty privilege and colorism, I was like, lady, where do you live and what kind of education system are you coming from? I'm like, at this age, you should know the difference. You should know the difference. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit this morning. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got. I don't know if you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you did, but if you didn't, it's okay. Um, but I do like to tell the truth. I like to tell the truth. And sometimes like having a video like this, I mean, it can be, it puts you in a really vulnerable position, right? Especially when you're being honest. And like I said, not everything has to be said, but sometimes you want to have these open, honest conversations, and hopefully it sparks healthy dialogue, interesting dialogue. But to be honest, I think, or maybe it's just me, but I get tired of hearing about people want to talk about I'm light skinned and I experienced this. And although it's true, we in general are not the ones who are being negatively impacted by colorism. By in its definition, you're getting basically like an advantage because of your skin. By definition. All right, so let me go ahead and disconnect from this because I think at this point I'm rambling. Hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel. Hopefully you'll send this to all your friends. Send it to all your friends, your aunties, your sisters, your cousins. You know, hey, send it to all the people who don't look like you too. Other communities experience the same thing. All right, until next time, let me come on camera and say goodbye to y'all. Bye.